Today, we learned that Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. revealed that he personally instructed the CDC to change its website to signal that the agency has now abandoned the position that vaccines do not cause autism. In an interview with the New York Times, Kennedy cited gaps in vaccine safety research as a reason for the change. And the Times wrote, quote, he said that he is not saying vaccines cause autism. He's simply saying that there's no proof that they don't. But that is an absolutely meaningless statement. As one doctor in the piece puts it, quote, you cannot prove that Coca-Cola doesn't cause autism either. The nightcap is still here. Joyce, do you see a big risk when critical government regulations or recommendations are linked to this kind of, I'm going to say nonsensical, I'm not going to say this kind of logic?
You know, nonsensical wasn't bad in this context, but maybe it a little bit underpedals the problem. Because when I talk with my colleagues in public health, I think that they're among the most devastated sector in American society right now, watching the growth of anti-science. And this has real consequences. This might seem a little bit quaint, but those of us who read and studied Project 2025 before the last election recall that there was a lot of talk, a lot of ink spilled on dismantling the federal government. And now we see some of the consequences, this anti-science move where parents can't get vaccines for kids and where parents are being discouraged from following the science. You know, this is what Kennedy is known for. There are no surprises here. This is all on the doorstep of senators who voted to confirm someone who was known to be someone who promulgated this sort of anti-vaccine nonsense. And here we are.
Critics say he's missing the larger point that vaccines save millions of lives. So now the CDC has basically changed its website to echo his personal beliefs.
Not only is that a problem, and we've seen RFK Jr. purge all sorts of people who stand against him. I'm going to say this because this is a personal thing for me. I volunteer with young people who are on the spectrum. I work at the Wiley Center in Los Angeles. The amount of stress and pressure that families are under when they have children on the spectrum is immense. They don't need this. They don't need this kind of harassment. They don't need this lack of respect from someone who's in charge of the CDC. This stuff matters to me. And so we had this a couple months ago when they were talking about Tylenol and everything else like that. The struggles that these families have, not everybody is wealthy, not everybody's rich. The struggles these families have getting their kids help in school, getting their kids help in nursery centers and everything else like that, it is all the more complicated when you have these kinds of messages coming out of the White House and this administration. It is deeply offensive to me, and it hurts this country.
Thank you. There is another big change from the administration that you may have missed. The Department of Education is now saying that they no longer consider nursing as a professional degree, which now limits nurses' access to get funding for graduate education. Again, this seems almost arbitrary, but won't this have a big impact on healthcare and on the economy? We already have a nursing shortage in this country, and many, many people come to this country, immigrants, on visas specifically to be nurses here and study nursing.
Yeah, so don't worry. We could always just have more immigrants do those jobs for us, bring them in on an H-1B visa, perhaps. Look, it's a real problem. Let me give you another idea from my native country, Australia. The fundamental problem here is actually how we finance higher education. You want to go to college, the bills are astronomical, the government programs are impenetrable, the private sector's out profiteering like crazy. When I went to college, the federal government basically gave me a loan, and it's only paid once I was earning above average earnings, and it was repaid through the tax system. And it was a very simple income-based repayment system. It's the sort of thing that would be very easy to replicate here in the United States. It would make sure you only paid for a degree when you were ready to pay for it, when you had the ability to do so, and you wouldn't be paying if the degree itself didn't pay off. There are straightforward, common sense solutions here. And there's the financial sector that sort of benefits from the current state of play.
All right, there is also a recommendation out now from the Department of Transportation. They are now advising that you should dress with respect to help bring courtesy and class back to air travel, right? We could laugh about the absurdity of this, but this administration is saying, on one hand, we're all about don't tread on me. Okay, don't touch my guns. Don't tell me if I should get vaccinated. But if you put yourself on a Spirit Airlines flight to Vegas, you sure as hell better be in a jacket and tie.
Yeah, the problem with my delayed flight last week was not that people weren't hot enough that were next to me. That was not the issue. It's never been the case. not to go back to RFK for 1 second. I think maybe we're missing the point here that this guy is a supplement pushing fella.
Yeah.
And part of the deal here is drive people away from healthcare, drive people away from any traditional form of healthcare. Just take a few stuff that is sold online for $9 a pop or something. That's the world he came from. He came from the natural news space that basically took over Facebook and places like InfoWars over the last 10, 15 years. So he's from a different world than we are. We go to the doctor and we deal with science, and because we want our friends and family and kids and parents to be healthy and live. And they're playing a game.
Okay, so then are you saying this is where Project 2025 that says let's dismantle the federal government meets the grift?
Yes, that's exactly where it is. And it's very profitable to do this. Like, it's not the people that are in his ear are people who still need to sell those things, that think that everything can be solved with a juice fast or whatever. That's what they are going for. And I hate that that's the case. And there are some pros still at the CDC doing that stuff. But when an order comes down from on high that you just have to change the website, it's really not much you can do.
It's also a step away from science.
Yeah.
And science is just the fundamental driver of all human progress and prosperity.
All right, everybody is staying put. When we come back, it is time now for our MVPs of the week. Justin, a lot of winners this week. Who was yours?
I have got even more winners. So I teach Econ 101 at the University of Michigan. I've got 500 students.
In one class?
In one class. They're brilliant students, wonderful people. Go Blue. And they just took their second midterm, and I can report every single one of them is more qualified to run American trade policies than the current White House.
Oh, my God.
And I've read their answers. They were fantastic. They were outstanding. They understood the trade-offs, got the issues. I'm very hopeful for the future.
Wow. Econ 101 at the University of Michigan. There you go.